Hello everyone, I want to welcome you. This is Mr. Frazier. I want to start by reminding you that these are unscripted, and as such I might stumble over my words or make mistakes, and that's kind of the fun of it. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to do a read aloud of the same reading where you have to read, and I'm going to show you what I mean by active read, close reading. I want us to pay careful attention to our three rules for reading for social studies. The rules, first of all, be greedy, keep track, and apply. And what we mean by be greedy, remember, is that we want to make sure we're not wasting time. We read for what we're trying to get out of it, not for pleasure, like other subject areas, but actually for trying to get something of worth, to learn from it. Second, we want to keep track, and we're going to keep track today. I'm going to show you how to do that. And third, we're going to apply. That's the writing, and we're not going to do that. So we're going to do the first two rules. When we look at the source in a moment, we want to check who wrote it, what for, what type of source. And so let's take a quick look. Our source is, when we look at it, is obviously a news source. If we look at this here, it's for Time for Kids, so I'm going to highlight that. For my records, I suggest you do the same. That's nice because when you go to cite it, you want to know who wrote it. And also, if you take a look here, Cameron Keady wrote it. So that's the author. So it's a news article, so obviously it's here to inform us. So that's how we have to approach it. If it's there to inform us, it's very factual. So we shouldn't expect, hidden themes. We shouldn't expect, the information shouldn't be hidden. It should be very surface level. So that makes this a very approachable piece. So we're going to break it into sections first. When we look at it, sections emerge. Let's say this is section 1. That's called this here. Section 2. And let's call this here section 3. What do you think? I think that's the best bet. Alright, so let's take a look. If we're going to mark this up and read it, the first thing we want to do is read it first, all the way through. Once you've read it all the way through, you would go and read it a second time, maybe highlighting some things that might possibly be valuable. And then lastly, you'll go through and you'll mark up, you'll actually write out your notes. You'll actually keep track. That's rule number 2. The main idea is supporting details for each section. So let's assume we've read it once through, and then we're going to go through now and we're going to read it as if we're looking for possible useful information. So we'll highlight it. We don't want to highlight too much though, so we'll just highlight anything significant. So let's read it together, shall we? Typhoon in the Philippines. A powerful tropical storm in the Philippines leaves thousands dead. So obviously this is a heads up, the title. Philippine tropical storm in the Philippines, thousands dead. So that's going to be significant. Let's continue on. From section 1, here we go. The Philippines is reeling from a massive typhoon that hit its eastern seaboard on Friday. The powerful storm leveled nearly everything in its path and left a possible death toll of 10,000. Officials fear that the number will rise even higher than that. Super Typhoon Haiyan, called Yolanda in the Philippines, is the strongest recorded storm to make landfall anywhere on Earth. The devastation is, I don't have words for it, said Philippines Interior Secretary Mars Rojas. It's really horrific. It's a great human strategy. So let's look for significant information. First of all, we want to remember that this is, after all, a news story. So we're not looking for hidden themes. We don't have to recognize characters. We're looking for specific information, facts. So let's see. Death toll of 1,000, right? I'm going to zoom in. Yolanda or Haiyan, called Yolanda in the Philippines, is the strongest. Let's erase that. It is the strongest recorded storm to make landfall anywhere on Earth. That's probably significant. The quote is important, but I don't know if it's so much important to our factual look at this. Again, it's a news article. So let's continue. Now we're in section 2. A typhoon is a tropical storm with winds stronger than 74 miles per hour. It is the same as a hurricane, but scientists call the storms different names depending on where they occur. A typhoon forms over the northwestern Pacific Ocean, while a hurricane is born in the Atlantic Ocean or the northeastern or southern Pacific Ocean. These storms form when tropical winds gather moisture as they pass over the water that is at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The Philippines is no stranger to storms. Its warm ocean waters make it a prime location for them to occur. On average, 8 or 9 tropical storms make landfall in the country each year, but no storm has ravaged the country like Haiyan. Haiyan barreled across the central islands of the Philippines with a storm surge of 20 feet and winds reaching 200 miles per hour. Among the areas hardest hit is the eastern province of Leyte. Its capital city, Tacloban, was almost entirely flattened. Smaller provinces are also believed to have experienced similar devastation, but are difficult for rescue teams to reach. So let's take a look now. Okay? So again, I'm moving the page on you. For that, I apologize. A typhoon is a tropical storm with winds stronger than 74 miles per hour. That's fact. I don't know if it so much builds towards our story. Maybe the fact that it's the same as a hurricane would help give us reference, since we live in the United States and we call it a hurricane here. Where they form is less significant. Storms form over tropical winds, gather moisture. Again, that's oddly specific. Doesn't so much go with our story of the news story. It's more just facts. Now, facts are important, but it's not facts about the story. Those are just facts that build with the story. So we want to maybe ignore those for now. Let me continue down. The Philippines is no stranger to storms. Its warm ocean waters make it a prime location. So maybe this, on average, 8 or 9 tropical storms make landfall in the country each year is significant. This is definitely significant. No storm has ravaged the country like Haiyan. Maybe the fact that it reached 20 feet, 200 miles per hour, because it's about the specific storm. Yeah, I think we could go into Tacloban in that circumstance, but I think we're good here. Then we move on. Okay, section 3. We're in our last section. We're almost there, folks. Aid arrives. The Department of Social Welfare and Development says 9.5 million people have been affected by Haiyan. With power and communications down, survivors are forced to walk far distances to find help. Tacloban's only functioning hospital has just 250 beds, and medicine is in short supply. The U.S. military arrived Monday afternoon in Tacloban with rescue teams. In the United Kingdom, European Union, Australia, and New Zealand have also sent help. The U.S. government is organizing emergency shipments of critical needed material to provide shelter to the hundreds of thousands of Filipinos driven from their homes by this unprecedented storm, said Secretary of State John Kerry. Though aid has arrived in the Philippines, the work to restore the country has only just begun. So let's take a look at what might be specific, okay? Alright, let's start at the top. How about the fact that 9.5 million people have been affected by the storm? If we were to go, its only functioning hospital has 250 beds. Maybe that's important. Definitely the fact that they're getting help from the U.S. military, the UK, European Union, New Zealand are all providing help. And maybe the fact that the work has only begun. So basically what we've done now, let me zoom out so you can see, is we have gone and we've highlighted some possible important facts. We haven't found the main ideas and supporting details. We've just kind of shortened our search now for what may be significant. Now we could jump, if we had a lot of practice at this, to writing the main idea and supporting detail for the whole piece, just based upon the information we have. But we would be at a disadvantage here where we haven't had enough practice doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the main idea and supporting details for each section. So let's start with section 1, shall we? Section 1, what we need, to find the main ideas and supporting details, just to remind you, what we need to do, first of all, for main idea, is we need to ask what the section is all about. Not look for a quote. We're not copying what the author wrote. We're trying to create an answer as if we asked the author, what is this section about? And then the author would give us an answer. They wouldn't quote it, they would say what it was about in their own words. And so we want you to do that same thing. We want you to tell us what it's all about in your own words. It has to be a sentence, and it is never a single word. So you wouldn't tell us it's about a storm. It'd be more than that. So let's take a look again. Let me pull it back up. Remember the important information I found. Death tolls 10,000. High-end called Aloud in the Philippines. Strongest recorded storm to make landfall everywhere on Earth. So what is this section about? Well, I like to include for my main idea, we always write the author is saying, and this helps us avoid plagiarism in the end if we started with this. The author is saying, let's say an enormous, because they talk about the strength of it, right? An enormous typhoon has hit the Philippines. My spelling's horrible, but it's there. Let's add to that, because it's not just that. The author saying enormous has hit the Philippines, causing a lot amount of damage, right? Because they talk about the damage, causing large amounts of damage. So there's our main idea. Now we want to look at the supporting detail for this section. Now it's a small section, so we're okay if we only have one supporting detail, but we want to write it like this, support SD1. Let's go back to our little notes here. We're going to look at what supporting details should look like. They are details that support the main idea. They're usually statistics, quotes, or facts. Personally, I like to avoid quotes. And the reason I like to avoid quotes is if we're going to use this information to write a summary or to write some other thing, we want to make sure that we don't have to work hard not to plagiarize. We want to make sure that it's easy to write our own words, and so why not jump right to our own words? So let's see what kind of facts or figures we could use to support what the main idea is. Again, the main idea is the author is saying an enormous typhoon hit the Philippines, causing large amounts of damage. So we need to find something that talks about the large amounts of damage and the typhoon. So let's start with the typhoon. How about Haiyan? Called Uganda. Hit Friday. Simple enough to establish the fact that the author is given the fact that it hit. And then supporting detail 2, even more simple, let's talk about the destruction. 10,000 people possibly died. Now take a look. Does this support our main idea? Haiyan called Yolanda hit Friday, and 10,000 people died. Absolutely. Those two supporting details can be used with the main idea to summarize section 1. That's all we're trying to do. So let's look at section 2. Okay, a little bigger, a little more challenging. So let's look at our facts first. Okay, same as a hurricane. Okay, on average, 8 or 9 tropical storms make landfall in the island country each year, and those storms have ravaged the country. Like Haiyan, 20 feet of winds reaching 200 miles per hour. So that's what we have. So let's look for our main idea. Obviously, our main idea would look at something about those facts. So after thinking about it, remember we start with the author is saying. If I had to really consider I would say that the author is probably saying that the Typhoon Haiyan is stronger than the storms that usually hit. So that's what I'm going to say. The author is saying that Typhoon Haiyan is stronger than the storms that typically hit the island. How about that? What do you think? And then let's take a look at our supporting details. Well, what kind of storms are hitting? Maybe we want to talk about that because, and how many usually hit. Let's start with the type of storms. First of all, typhoons. What are they? Typhoons are the same as a hurricane. I don't know if that is totally significant, but it is a supporting detail because they talk about the storms that typically hit, and the storms that typically hit are a hurricane, like we're used to talking about. And then supporting detail 2. Let's make this bigger, actually. Supporting detail 2 should probably talk about the fact that they get a lot of storms, right? So why don't we say, why don't we do a quote here? The Philippines are no stranger to storms. And why don't we use an ellipse so we can jump ahead, because we're looking right here. The Philippines are no stranger to storms. And we'll use the ellipse so that we can get the next part. On average, 8 or 9 tropical storms make landfall. So now we have this quote. This tool here in the center, the ellipse, is really significant simply because it allows for us to take and make one quote out of what would be kind of long and rambling. So it's a very significant tool. We want to make sure we use it sparingly and carefully. But we're going to use it in this case. So the Philippines are no stranger to storms. On average, 8 or 9 tropical storms make landfall. I think that's nice. Those two things support the fact that the author is trying to say that Typhoon Haiyan is stronger than the storms that typically hit the island. I think that's clear. I think that's consistent. I think we're ready to go. Let's go to section 3 now. Are we ready? Okay, here we go. So we're going to look first at the things we identified as possibly significant. We're just skimming. Again, 9.5 million people have been affected by Haiyan. Just 250 beds. Medicine is in short supply. U.S. military arrived Monday. UK, European Union, Australia, New Zealand have also sent help. And lastly, the work to restore the country has just begun. So if I had to summarize what the author is trying to say in this section, and remember, we always start with the MI, the author is saying that if I had to say what I thought they were trying to say, I think they're talking about the fact that there's a lot of people who need help, and that the United States and other countries are starting to step up. So how would I say that? The author is saying that with large amounts of people in need, the USA and others have stepped up to help. Alright, so now we're on to our last step here. We've got to get 2 more supporting details for section 3. So supporting detail 1. Let's take a look. I'm looking at my facts here. I would say we could just take the fact that 9.5 million people have been affected. And also, the fact that supporting detail 1, the USA, UK, EU, Australia, and New Zealand have helped. Alright, so those should support that main idea that the author is saying that the large amounts of people in need, the USA and others have stepped up to help. 9.5 million people have been affected. The USA, UK, EU, Australia, and New Zealand have helped. I would say that's pretty consistent. So now we got to talk about the main idea and supporting of the whole. Okay? So now when we look at it, we got to think about our chart that we talked about before, where we have our main idea of the whole section supported by the main idea of each smaller section, supported by the supporting details of each smaller section. Correct? Correct. So, if that's how we want to look at it, what we need to do is look at over here, we need to look at our main ideas and try and come up with a big statement. The author is saying that, now let's look at our sections. The author is saying an enormous typhoon hit the Philippines, causing large amounts of damage. The author is saying that a typhoon high end is stronger than the storms that typically hit the island. And the author is saying that large amounts of people are in need in the USA and others have stepped up to help. So if we're going to kind of do the main idea of the whole section, I would say that the main idea is that the strongest storm ever hit the Philippines, and has caused the reaction of international aid. So how would we say that? The author is saying that the largest typhoon in history has struck and devastated the Philippines, causing international, how about causing other countries to help? Causing other countries to offer help. There we go. Now we have a main idea of the whole thing. Our supporting details are here. Our supporting details for the main thing are here, here, and here. So, in essence, now we have a full reading, close reading. We have a main idea of the whole thing. We have supporting details that correlate to each section. And we are ready to write about. We are ready to write. We're ready to write about this whole reading. Now, the key here is, look how messy my paper is. When we read for social studies, we leave a messy paper, and we've achieved that. So, I'd like you to look at your own reading, compare it to this one, and be ready to give me the feedback in class. Again, you can review this video at any time. Rewind it if you have any questions. And I hope this was informative. Best of luck, guys.